In tonight's session, we will be covering the use of TrainingPeaks platform, which will be delivered by our TrainingPeaks UK Ambassador and British Triathlon High Performing Coach Programme tutor, Simon Wald. So without further ado, I shall hand you over to Simon and we'll get started. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellie. Lovely to see you again. Looking so happy after this long lockdown, and welcome everybody. It's not long now, is it? The pools are open, the sun's shining, and pretty soon you'll be able to go out there and sort of express all of that bike and run training you've done over the last few months. So, but that's not why we're here tonight. We're here to talk about this subject, TrainingPeaks 101. Before then, though, and to save Ellie the trouble of having to repeat this several times tonight, I just wanted to, talk about a few house rules. So if you could keep your microphone on mute, please, that would be great. We've had some really interesting conversations that we've been privileged to listen to when I've been doing some webinars where husband and wives have been having arguments and we can all hear that going on. So if you're telling the kids off or anything else, keep your microphone on mute, please. And I'd also ask you to turn your phones onto silent if they're on, or put them on flight mode so you're not distracted. I'm sure you've got questions. We will be leaving some time at the end of the presentation in order to answer those. And if you could put those into the chat box function, Ellie will be going through them during my presentation and making sure that we don't miss any. So we'll come to those at the end. I'm standing up at my desk, a stand-up desk. I hope some of you are doing the same, but if you are sitting cross-legged on your yoga mat, if you're sitting outside in the sun with a gin and tonic or a beer, if you're sitting down cuddling your dog or lying on the bed listening, I don't mind what you do as long as it's comfortable and you are able to stay engaged with this and enjoy the session. So feel free to find your own comfortable learning environment. You might find that you've got low bandwidth. It commonly happens. The video function does take a lot of bandwidth. So if you are struggling to keep up with the presentation, you can turn your webcam off and that will help save some of your internet space for the presentation. You might think this is quite strange, actually, for health and safety, but we actually had a guy joining one of my monthly Zoom meetings the other day, and he was driving home from work. He had it on his phone. He had the video function turned off, but he was listening to the presentation, and I was thinking this could go horribly wrong. So if you're out walking the dog or walking along the pavement by the road, please just stay engaged in what you're doing. If you're driving, I definitely don't want you to be listening to this. It'll be recorded, and so you can catch up later. And if you're swimming, biking, and running, I think that you should put multitasking to one side and concentrate on that, or concentrate on this, but try not to multitask there. Now, I'm going to be minding my language. It's quite difficult for an effusive, enthusiastic Yorkshireman, but I will be very careful about swearing and using offensive language. And if you're going to be speaking out loud or writing stuff, please, I'd appreciate it if you did the same. And right at the end there, it says that British Triathlon do reserve the right to disconnect any participant whose negative attitude or behaviour impacts on a successful conference experience for everyone else. And that includes me. However, what I would say as a Yorkshireman, I don't mind a good Barney. So if you've got something that you really want to debate heatedly with me, then let's just do it off air tonight. I don't mind that at all. But please, let's keep this a nice place for everybody to learn. You will probably see that the record button is on. So if you're uncomfortable with this, then you can turn your camera off. And finally, you'll see that little hashtag there, the big reboot. Everything has to have a social media presence these days. So if you have ignored my request to turn your phone off and you are on social media, or you're on it on another screen on your laptop or computer, then feel free to share on any of those channels, hashtag the big reboot. All right, let's get going then. So here we are. Now, what's your goal as a coach? Now, I'm talking to you as a coach tonight because when I spoke with Ellie about the potential audience, she told me that probably 75% of the people that had signed up were coaches. If you're not a coach, I apologize. However, what I would say is if you're using TrainingPeaks, that probably puts you in the position of being self-coached. And so you can still get some benefit out of what we're going to talk about tonight. So I've been working as a full-time triathlon coach for for myself for 25 plus years. Okay, since 1995 when I started. And over that time, I've had lots of goals. I love my work. I can happily work until I'm 70 or 80 if I live that long doing this, because it's not really work for me. However, what I would say is that I also like riding my bike. I like hanging out with my mates. I like going open water swimming. I like paddleboarding. I like doing lots of other stuff that isn't work. And so I want to make sure I'm as efficient as possible as a coach. It's caused a few arguments over time. I once shared the revelation, as it seemed to some people, I could write a training program for an athlete in 20 minutes, at which point they suggested that I was shortchanging them. However, I then explained that the fact that I'd cut the program writing time down to 20 minutes meant that I could spend those other minutes talking with them or learning about them and engaging with them and finding out what really made them tick. And that made me a better coach, I felt. So, but I think it's important to be efficient in your work. You definitely don't want to be doing stuff twice over and doubling your efforts. So I'm going to show you some ways in which you can use TrainingPeaks to be more efficient. And the second goal, or one of the other goals I have, but one of the key goals, is to help my athletes reach their goals, whatever they might be. Now, this isn't an exclusive list. Feel free to add your own points to that. And if I've missed ones off that you think are important, that's fine. Feel free to share them. But those are two things that I think are really important and very relevant to TrainingPeaks. And so what I'm going to do is share with you how I think TrainingPeaks can help you to achieve those two goals and maybe a few more. All right, so I've divided it into two parts based on what we talked about there: being a more efficient coach, which we'll deal with now, and then helping your athlete to achieve the goals. Now, there are also more than the 5 functions that I've outlined here. But when I chatted with Cody, who's the coach education manager at TrainingPeaks, we discussed all of the ways, and he felt these were the 5 that they would choose. As it turned out, they were the ones I chose independently. So the fact that we're sort of thinking along the same lines is pretty good, really. So there's a way in which you can put the athletes that are associated with your TrainingPeaks account into groups. Creating a workout library is time consuming. I won't hide that from you. It's time consuming to start with, but it will save you way more time than that in the long run. Building training plans and keeping those in a library has many different benefits for you, which I'll share. I'm also going to share with you how to use the copy and paste function to save time, and also the split screen option. Now, I've got some slides. They're not the easiest to see because I had to minimize them a little bit. So I think I'm probably going to have enough time to do a little demonstration once we've gone through these 5 here. So let's work through these. So you can see here that this is what I call a calendar view of a group. Now, if you look at this, and apologies for the fact that it's quite small, I had to do that to make sure it fitted in several athletes, but you can see here the view that I see on Monday morning. So my first job on Monday morning, well, my second job really, because my first job's to make coffee. My second job, usually starting at 7 a.m, is to bring up this this view on my TrainingPeaks calendar and review what exactly my athletes, the one-to-one athletes I work with, have been up to in the previous week. So you can see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 view on there. And if I have my cursor functioning on here, I will be able to scroll down and bring into view the other 9 or 10 athletes that are in that group. So at a glance, I can go down and see that athlete number 2 there, the full view, has probably only completed 3 days of training out of the 7. Athlete number 4 on that screen, you can see the one with all the green boxes, has been very diligent and completed everything. And then there's a mixture of people that are able to complete stuff and not able to. So those red boxes are a flag to me and would cause me to look a bit deeper. And the way I work through these is I write a little list of all the athletes each week in one column, and then in the column next to it, I make little notes as I'm going along. So I'll quickly scroll down, look at every athlete, click on certain sessions where they've put some comments. make some notes, and then I start the process of writing them an email, praising them, asking questions about what they've been up to, etc. Okay. Now, I'd been using TrainingPeaks for a long time when I found out about this. I went to one of the TrainingPeaks University workshops for one day, and this was an absolute revelation for me. It saved me so much time because I used to click on one athlete, open up their program, look at what they'd done, then I'd close it and then open up the other one. Now I had the option to see everybody in one glance. It's a game changer. Now, the other game changer is this next page that I'm going to show you, which is the home page. So if you look at that black line just along the top, you'll see on the left the TrainingPeaks logo, and then you'll see 4 words: home, calendar, dashboard, ATP. And you can see that the home word has got a white line underneath it. That means that's the page that we're viewing now. So you can see down at the left-hand side, there's a little icon photograph for each of the athletes in that thing. I've grayed out their names to protect the innocent. And what you can see is that we're looking at this on a Thursday now, which is why there's that grey line running down the middle. And you can see what's happened for the 7 days previous to that, plus the Thursday. You can see athlete number 1, very diligent there, completed all the sessions. Athlete number 2's completed most of them, but they're yellow, which means they've done maybe a little bit more or a little bit less than required. Athlete number 3 has got all red boxes or red circles. So again, like the previous page, that would cause me to sit up and just take a deeper look. And then there's a mixture of those. We go down the page and there's another athlete with lots of reds there. So again, I would be, in fact, that athlete I know hasn't done anything on there. They've broken their ankle out running, so there won't be any yellow or green boxes for quite some time for that person. So and also that it gives me some other information. So if you look a bit further across the right, you'll see that column that says alerts, and you'll see what looks like kettlebells. They're actually medals. So that means that those athletes have put in a performance in something that's led to a personal best. Maybe it's identifying a new threshold or something, or a new fastest time on something. And then you can see in the right hand column where there's a grey box, a green box, an orange box, and some comments there. You can see one athlete there, he's done an endurance run and he's got some little comments that have gone underneath it. So at a glance, I can see what's happened on that day as well. So these are just things that give you insights, and that then enables you to dive into it further if necessary. All right. So the next way that we can be more efficient is creating what's called a workout library. Now, if you're just starting up with TrainingPeaks, this is probably going to be one of your most time-consuming tasks. If you can see here on the right-hand side, or the right 75%, there's a calendar view. 5 weeks, Monday to Sunday, and it's empty at the moment. That's me there. So if I was setting myself sessions, I could click on one of those boxes. I could open up a bike session, then I could type in the requirements. So you might do that if you're new to TrainingPeaks. But if you know that you're going to be using that session again in the future, you can then click on the icon in the top right-hand corner. You can't see it here, but I'll be able to show you in the demonstration in a moment. And you can save that to your library. Now you can see on the left-hand side there in that column, I've got a series of workouts. The title of that is HIIT intervals on the bike long. So I've also got HIIT intervals short for the bike. It's important to make sure you've got a good header title to start with, because you can then search for it in that box just above underneath where it says workout library. When you click on the little filter icon there, the little hamburger icon, a whole series of disciplines open up, and you can click on one that just gives you access to sessions for that sport, or you can leave it on all and it'll give you access to all the sessions. But you can see here that I've got 7 or 8 long duration intervals for the bike, and you can see that they're actually I've got a structure to them as well. So I've created them in the workout builder. So that's something else that takes a little bit of time, but once you've done them, they're done for good then. And if you were going to apply them to other athletes, that 4 by 8 minutes, for instance, when I've gone into the program and set the parameters, it asks them to do the 8 minutes at between 105 and 110% of their functional threshold. Now, that's generic, but when it applies it to athlete X, it then calculates the FTP based on what's in their settings. So if that athlete had an FTP of 200 watts, it would now be giving them a parameter of, what would that be, between 210 and 220 watts. Okay, for an athlete who had an FTP of 300 watts, it would be asking them to ride at 315 to 330. So you can see how it starts to personalize. So I think I've got about 30 or 40 different folders now with sessions for swim, bike, run, strength training, and I've got specific sessions for specific events. So I've got Ironman specific bike sessions, Ironman specific runs, standard distance swim sessions, etc. So time consuming to start with, time saving forever and a day after that. All right, the next time saving efficient way of working I'm going to show you is this thing here called the training plan library. So it's on the extreme left hand column. It's the bottom icon, training plans. You'll see there that I've got a whole load of those, and most of them say winter base plan. So again, I would have created a folder called winter base plans 2020, and if I clicked on that, a whole series of base plans would appear, and you could see I've got a balanced 7-hour plan, a balanced building to 16 hours a week, a balanced building to 13 hours a week. So athletes on my program, and I've got 160 people in my SWAT program. So it's a lot of people to deal with. Can't possibly write a program for them all. So I've got about 20 different winter base plans, and there'll be a thread running on the Facebook page, and they will, I highlight which plan they want, and then we will apply that plan to all of them. And another function of TrainingPeaks is it allows you to, if I've got 10 athletes that want the same plan and they want to start on the same day, I can apply it using one of the functions within the plan itself. I can apply it to all of them at the same time. So that saves me having to apply it 10 different times. So I can create plans for every particular example you think of, and so can you. So I have plans for winter-based training. I have race-specific plans, and I've created a plan for pretty much every single race. Now, that's not as clever as it sounds, because if it's half Ironman, for instance, you've got races that have got flat bike and flat run, or generally you've got races that have got hilly bike, flat run, or hilly bike, hilly run. So there's 3 different options. Okay, so I can apply that. So if they tell us what race they are aiming for, we can apply a plan that is similar enough to that race for them. And what this also allows us to do is we can apply it to start on a particular date, or we can apply it to end on a particular date. So if I know that the race plan is 20 weeks long, if they tell me when the race is, I can apply it, and it will then backload it for the 20 weeks before that. The only caveat to that is that if they've already got something in TrainingPeaks and there's going to be an overlap in those first few weeks of the switchover, you need to clear that out first. Otherwise, you end up with a lot of mopping up to do. So you could create winter-based plans. You could create race-specific plans. You could create a recovery week that you give to everybody. You could create an end-of-season recovery program, which has lots of different activities. If you're a coach with a group of people within your club, you can create plans that target a specific event, like your club championship, a qualification race that everybody's doing. You can even create plans that target a specific physiological variable. So if you had a 10-week VO2 max building program, or a 10-week run threshold improver, or something for the London Marathon, you can create those. And then you can see in here, I put dynamic plans. You can have a whole group of people that replied to this, and they will all get the same program on the same day. So everybody's doing the same thing at the same time, and you can go in as their coach and have a look at what everybody's doing. And once you change that dynamic plan, if you change a session on a Wednesday for in the dynamic plan, it changes it for every single person. So the possibilities are not infinite, but they're pretty wide. And if you can't find a way of improving your time management as a coach, then I can help you more with that. But there's lots of options out there for you. All right, now this is the final thing I wanted to show you, and I can show you this on this screen here. So this is an example of the split screen, and this is also an example of how you would copy and paste. But the best way for me to demonstrate this is to actually go into TrainingPeaks and show you myself. So what we've got here is, this is my folder. So I can delete a few things here. So I'm going to delete these now.
Simon, I still think you're on your...
Oh, okay. Yep, you're right. So you can't see, you can't see TrainingPeaks at the moment, can you? Right, okay. Let me, sorry about that. Let me go back in and find training. Oh yeah, there we are. So right, I'm going to share this one with you. Okay. Right. Can you see that now, Ellie?
Perfect.
All right. So this is not revealing what any of my athletes do. This is my TrainingPeaks file here. So we're looking at May now. So this is my training program for next week, and this is some strength training that's already in there that everybody gets. So you can see that actually I've copied and pasted these. So if you wanted to copy and paste something, you can take that there, and then if you click the shift button, and this is on my Mac, click the shift button, and then it covers all of them in blue, and then I can click the copy thing there, and then I can scroll down the page and I can apply that then to this week here that's got nothing in it. So I click that little hamburger icon, I click the paste button, and all of that stuff has appeared in there, right? So that's copy and paste. I talked about workout libraries. Here are all my workout libraries for swimming. If you look at this filter here, you can see I can nominate all of these sports and disciplines, so I can show all of my TrainingPeaks libraries, and you'll see them all appear now there down the left hand side. Or I can just apply one for running, and then you can see down here I've got HIIT intervals, long and short, fitness test, brick runs, 70.3 and Ironman specific, different types of sessions. And then if I open that up, I've got this. These are just easy running sessions with strides. So if somebody was doing a 90-minute run, I just drag that one across here, put it in on that date, and there it is now. Okay, so those are the workouts. You can see they've all been structured as well. So if we take a particular workout here and I can edit it, you can see that this session's been built now. So 20 minutes active running. So you see there, 20 minutes RPE 6 to 8, easy running at math pace. Then in the middle here, I've got 10 lots of 20 seconds of strides. So you'd stop your run there, find a flat piece of ground, do 10 lots of 20 seconds. And then when you've done that, you do another 15 minutes of running to get back to where you started, and then you cool down. Okay, you can upload this to devices. So go to your Garmin, your Sunto, your anything else that you're wearing on your wrist, and you can do the same with bike sessions as well if you're going to ride them out on the road. So we'll get rid of that. We'll get rid of that. Or you can see also there, look, when I open that session, that there's a little folder here, so I can, all the folders that I can make that go into. Okay, so keeping them in folders really makes it time efficient. So up here, this is where we're going to do copy and paste. You can see that there's this icon here, 2 calendars next to each other. So if I click one of the icons there, you'll see another calendar opens up in a moment. Normally opens up. I'm running a little slow. There we go. All right, so now let's say that I wanted to give my sessions to another athlete. So I've got a blank calendar here, which will appear in a moment. There it is. So this is Bob Roberts. So Bob is going to do the exact same strength sessions that I'm going to do, and he's going to do them at the same time as me. Now, I could apply this as a dynamic plan so that everybody in the group gets it. Or let's say that Bob's a new athlete and I want to give him this to test out. So I'm going to put it into that. So I copy here, Monday to Saturday, and then I can paste over here. And now you see what I had in one athlete has gone to another. So I can copy and paste. I tend to have dummy programs for each athlete. So I plan everything in here and then I apply it to their program and vice versa. So plenty of options for you to use this function and save some time. Okay, so I think that's what we had for being a more efficient coach. Now I'm going to show you how to use TrainingPeaks to help your athletes more. So we're going to go back to this. There we go. Okay. Okay, so helping your athletes to be or to reach their goals. So 5 ways that you can do this. So hopefully, just going back a moment, if you're an athlete listening to this and you're not a coach, but you're actually using TrainingPeaks to write your own programs, there's no reason why you can't build your own workout library. There's no reason why you can't use the copy and paste function to repeat certain types of training programs over a week. So you might just go to a club swim session Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So you don't want to write that individually in each week. You can just put it in for 1 week and then copy the whole week and then add it to all of the weeks you'll be going. That'll save you time. You might have created a program that you did last year that helped you get into peak form. And so you could just go and copy what you did in 2020 or 2019 and then paste it into the appropriate dates for 2021 and repeat that program over. So you can do all of those things. You can build workout libraries, you can build training plan libraries, you can use the copy and paste function, you can use the split screen function. Now, if you're an athlete, you can use these, you can benefit from these same suggestions that I'm going to offer up to the coaches now. So one of the first things that we do when we're welcoming a new athlete into TrainingPeaks, into our program, is we have to help them set the correct training zones. Because when data is recorded, and we all know how much data is available for athletes to collect now, and we all know how much data everybody's collecting with their swim, bike and run sessions. They've got stuff from Strava, they've got stuff from the Garmin. It's all got to come in here. They might be using some other apps that are bringing in heart rate variability or body weight or diet. We need to make sure that the zones are set up correctly, because you'll see some of the other graphs that we have at the end interpret that data. And if the data's wrong, then it will give you the wrong impression about your fitness, either positively or negatively. Okay, so data's objective. It's just figures. It tells me how fast somebody's run or cycled. It tells me how far they've gone in a session. It doesn't tell me how they were feeling either during that session or the next day. So this is where we use the next 2 things, which are called daily metrics. So that's an old-fashioned way, if you like, of somebody ranking how they feel, how they slept, what their feel-good factor was for the day, how motivated they are to train, how sore their body feels. Okay, and post-activity comments, God forbid, require a little bit of manual labor from athletes. That's very frustrating for coaches when athletes say, yeah, I've loaded all my data, the Garmin's done it, it's all up there, and it's all those numbers. It doesn't tell you how they felt. So you could look at 2 sessions and it would say run 45 minutes. Intensity factor, that's percentage of maximal effort, 70%. Speed, 5 minutes 30 per kilometer, right? So everything looks the same in the numbers, except that this week they felt like an absolute running god, and last week they felt like a running novice. Okay, they felt terrible. Now, what you want to know is why or how they felt, because at the moment you just think that those 2 sessions are the same. So post-activity comments allow athletes to tell the coach how the 2 events or races were different. Now, if you're self-coached, you can still use this function, because most of us can't remember what we did yesterday, let alone last week or last month. So if you've left comments there, you can go back and see your progress and how things have changed. The next thing is loading data. It's no longer a manual job. If you sync your apps with TrainingPeaks, then the information will be sucked into the ether and distributed accordingly to all of those apps. I think when I get back to my house, I get in the backyard, and before I've even got to the back door, the Wi-Fi's picked up and told me that my Wahoo bike computer has sent my data to 4 different apps before I've touched anything. So that's the time-saving bit for athletes. And then all that data gets shared into graphs, and there's a whole load of graphs we can use in TrainingPeaks, and I'm going to share with you some of the best ones that you can use. Okay, so let's have a deeper look at that. So setting zones. When you go into TrainingPeaks, you have at the very top, and I'll do a little demo here as well. Where at the very top of the zones setting, you will have the default, right? The default heart rate or threshold. That is very general. That's the one that most people fill in because it's at the top. What I would say is if you go further down, you can see heart rate options for adding a sport. So you would want to add probably cycling and running there. If you go down to the next row, you will see power zones. So again, you might want to add cycling and possibly running there. And then you go down a bit further and you see pace, and you might want to put in specific threshold paces for swimming and swimming and running. Now you'll see that I've got question marks next to this. I don't think that heart rate is particularly good for swimming. You can try wearing a chest strap in the water if you like. They tend to be more trouble than they're worth. You can use one of the hold-on chest straps that you have at the end of the lane. Again, you have to stop. So if you're doing a really high intensity set and you've got everything sorted and your watch is connected, by then your heart rate will have dropped. So, and I know some people like to wear watches in the pool, and these watches with the little infrared lights on the back will pick up the heart rate that's coming from your pulse because of the blood flow. But again, I don't think they're particularly accurate at high intensity. So heart rate, a question mark for swimming. I've got pace as a question mark for biking, because if you take into account terrain benefits like going downhill, it's, you might be doing 60k an hour, 70k an hour freewheeling. What benefit is that really? And equally, you might be doing 5k an hour going up a 1 in 4 hill. So I don't believe pace is a particularly good option. And equally, power has a question mark, because I know that there are a couple of power pods that you can put onto your shoes now, but they require a lot of integrating and a lot of time to understand that. And the data is not the same as power you get from a bike power meter. So for some people who've taken the time to learn that, it might be relevant. For most people, I'd have a question mark about that. So you want to have some specific thresholds. Now, if occasionally you tend to go on your paddleboard, or you ride a mountain bike, or you do some indoor rowing, you probably don't want to set up specific parameters for that if it's something you do occasionally in the winter or when it's raining. So that's when you can use the default heart rate, and that will give you a rough estimate of the intensity of the session. But as it's a small percentage of overall training, it's not going to make a great deal of difference to any graphs that are formed. So I wouldn't worry too much about specifics for those unless you're going to be using them as a major part of your workout. Now, you'll see I've got some stars down here. Heart rate zones, when you set them, they don't change much over time. If your threshold is 150 beats per minute, it might change 1 or 2 beats per minute. It might change, it might drop as you get older over a particular period of time. So athletes over 45 might find that their maximal heart rate and therefore their threshold heart rates are dropping. But in the main, heart rate zones don't change a great deal. It's the power or the speed or the effort you can put in that changes. Pace and power zones do need updating. If you are on the TrainingPeaks Premium account, then you can put a notification in, or you can tick a little box within the settings for them to update automatically. Coaches, you can notify or ask for notifications from TrainingPeaks so that you know when zones have either updated automatically or when they need to be updated manually. Okay, so that will save time. And those remember those little icons I mentioned before on the home page where it looked like a kettlebell? That's often what it's telling us, is that pace and power zones have got better. Okay, right, daily metrics. So one thing I want my athletes to tell me more than anything is how they feel about their training. So you can see two pictures here. This picture on the left-hand side is what is available in that calendar view. When you click the plus button, this page will come up and you can enter all of that data. Now, you'll see that there's quite a few boxes that need filling in there. I've got weight, water percent, percentage fat, muscle mass, because some of these Tanita scales or the Withings ones, and I think there's a couple of other companies that are doing them now, will send by Bluetooth this data to your TrainingPeaks metrics, so it'll automatically appear in there every morning if you've got the Bluetooth connected. What I think is really important, those things are okay to track over time. What I think is more important is the number of hours somebody's sleeping, the quality of that sleep, so that's something you have to rank manually. How sore you are, again, that's something you have to rank manually, and that when you click on that button, there's a series of descriptive names that you can click on. So, you know, for soreness, it's like horrible or not sore at all, and then there's a range of different phrases within that. If you've got a sleep app, like, so I wear a little Whoop wristband. If you're wearing an Aura ring, you can connect that with TrainingPeaks as well, and the data from there will also be sucked into that. And so you can nominate to have time in deep sleep, time in light sleep, times you woke up, total time awake, time in REM sleep. Actually really important, and I'm very engaged with those of my athletes because that tells me a lot about their mood and how they're feeling. And actually below that, you can see manually how you can write in fatigue, mood, stress, or overall feeling, and motivation to train, all of which have been proven to be key indicators of how somebody's responding to program or what their total life stress is. There's also a little box in there for heart rate variability. So again, the Aura ring, the Whoop will connect, and the Aura ring connects through heart rate variability for training. And there's a couple of other HRV apps which will also feed information into there, so you don't need to type that in manually. And then also underneath, there's a little box where you can write anything to your coach. On the right-hand side, you'll see another box, and that gives you two columns. You'll see the left-hand column, which shows the layout. So that's just where I'm in the athlete settings. Then in the right-hand two columns, you'll see metrics, what's available and what's in use. So that column there that's in use with the white box highlighted with water percent, those are the things you can see in the left-hand photograph. And the other ones are some of the other parameters that I can drag across if I want. So I wouldn't want height in there because that's never going to change. If you're interested in measuring inches, you could have hips or left bicep or left calf. You can, if you are a coach who's interested in knowing what your female athlete's monthly cycle is, you can drag menstruation in there. You can drag all sorts of other things. So it's up to you or your athlete to choose what data you want to see. But make sure it's relevant and that you're actually going to use it. Otherwise, don't bother. All right. I talked about post-activity comments earlier. This is one I created that I've written for myself. So I might have seen an athlete's done this endurance of rolling hills, 2 hours. And they might have done the same ride last week. So the comments help me to get a third or fourth dimension on top of the metrics and speaking to them and seeing the data. So it's important that I've put there, it was a fasted ride, so I didn't have any breakfast. It was very windy, and the first 60 minutes was into a block headwind. So when I pressed the blue analyze button and looked at the heart rate, I might see that the heart rate there was quite a lot higher than I'd expect for the first hour. but then much slower on the second hour because there was a tailwind, and that would account for why the speed was so much different. We were also riding uphill mostly over the moors. Once we passed Silsden, we had a tailwind. We stopped in Ilkley for a coffee, but the reason I've highlighted only is because I'm currently on a no sugar phase, and so wanted to make sure that I'd reminded myself, or my coach if I had one, that I didn't have any cake or any biscuits. And also that if I was new to fasted training, I'd want my coach to know that riding for 2.25 hours with no breakfast wasn't a problem on just caffeine and water. But once I got up to 3 hours, and you can see also that there's nearly 900 meters of climbing, so it was a pretty hilly route. 3 hours or 4 hours might be more of a challenge. So those comments are really, really important, and I would encourage you as a coach to ask your athletes to put those in for you. And if you're an athlete coaching yourself, I would encourage you to make notes there, because it's really good for you to look back if you get ill or injured, hopefully to find out when little things started happening. Okay, these are a couple of the final things here. This photograph just shows you some of the partner apps that you can connect to TrainingPeaks to suck up data. So you can see all of the watches there, the Apple Watch, the Fitbit, Garmin, Polar, Sunto, Wahoo. You can see some of the bike trainers there, Ruvi, Trainer Road, Zwift, Be Cool, Coros, PowerTap. And you can see some of the iOS apps that you can use there. And that's just a handful. There's lots of the other lifestyle type apps that can upload some of that data. And you can see that there's a link there, trainingpeaks.com/upload/, and that will take you to this page of the featured partners to connect. And that's something that will help your athletes stop them having to do it manually. All right, so finally then, some of the graphs that we're going to use that I think are the best. So looking at total duration and distance by week. Now, one of the reasons I like this is it shows me at a glance what people have been up to. If I've got a new athlete coming on board, looking at this tells me what they're really capable of. So if somebody's joined me and they've been using TrainingPeaks and it's showing that their average training load for the last 3 or 4 months was 10 hours a week, and they've said to me, I can do 15 hours a week, I'd be wondering where they're going to find the other 5 hours. How has their life changed so much that they can up their training by 50%? Yeah, then I might go back further and see, oh, in the summer they ride to work every day, and so that's where it's come from, and so I would look at that. But if it's been somebody's habit to run or ride a certain duration or distance each week, it's not, unless your life's changed massively, those aren't going to change. I want to look at fitness summary, how they've been distributing the time between disciplines. We'll look at peak pace and power. That's quite interesting because it can tell us, give us a good idea of their functional threshold power without them doing an FTP test. We also want to see how much time they're spending in their zones. Are they training too hard? And finally, the performance management chart, which gives us an overall view and a trend. So let's start top left-hand corner, duration by week. You can see what's happened over the last sort of 15 or so weeks there. And then that dotted line would give the average. We can look at distance per week. So you can see that's mostly cycling, or that is cycling there purely. So we can nominate to look at across all sports, and you can change between sports, and you can get duration by week or distance by week. Then we can move on to this fitness summary here. So you can see that this is for me over the last few months. Yeah, 50% biking, 20% running, very little swimming. So that's obvious what's happened just because of lockdown. And the last bit of swimming in there would be what I was doing in November, December. And you can see there's a fair amount more strength. So normally that swim portion would be higher and the others a bit lower. You can see my peak paces on the run. So you can see the grey box is from recently and the blue box is historically. So you can track changes. The bottom left-hand corner is time in heart rate zone. So you can see that I spend a lot of my time in zone 1 and 2, which is deliberate, and not much time in zones 3 and 4, which is deliberate, because I follow a polarized plan most of the time. And then this is the performance management chart. So you can see how the dark blue line that's going up there and trending, that's my chronic training load over time. You can see what my training load's like. So that was peaking in August last year for a big event, lots of cycling, and then you can see how it's sort of come back to a more maintenance load over the last few months, and obviously that's been without any swimming. So those are the 5 or 6 main graphs. And those graphs, that performance management chart, for instance, if the training zones are set wrong, then that whole training chart will be skewed. So that's why it's important to set them right at the beginning, and why it's important to keep on top of them. All right, so I think that's 7:18 now. So we've got a bit of time left for some questions. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen, and I'm going to come back to you, Ellie, and ask if you could manage that bit for me.
I can. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hold on, let's just get the chat box. So we had a few questions in. If everyone's comfortable who's asked a question would like to elaborate on the question. So the first one I want to go to is Hemi25. Are you still with us? You put a couple of questions in. I don't know if you wanted to elaborate on your queries or questions to Simon, if you're comfortable.
Yeah, thank you. One of them you answered was about metrics and which ones you prefer them to use.
Yeah.
So that's great. Thanks for that, Simon. I still have a little bit of issue getting confused with the ATL and CTL functions, and whether you need a TSS for each individual session to be able for that to work properly.
Yes, definitely. I mean, TSS is probably better for aerobic sessions, so endurance sessions, so swim, bike and run, or mountain biking, or any of those. It's not quite as easy to work out TSS, because TSS is basically a product of the duration of your workout and the intensity you work at. Okay, so intensity as based on heart rate or power isn't quite as effective for any strength-based type of or conditioning sessions you might do. I would you can't really build effective ATL or CTL without getting a TSS for each of those sessions. So you would need to use a power meter or a heart rate monitor for those. And again, we can get right into the weeds on which type of device is better for measuring different sessions. You know, as just an example, if you were riding for several hours, you could probably use heart rate. If you were doing interval sessions, like a HIIT interval session, heart rate doesn't respond as quickly, so you're better off using FTP. But yeah, you need to amass TSS points in order for ATL and CTL to be an effective guide.
Thank you. Can I just follow up on that? So how much do you use ATL and CTL as a guide to the fitness levels of your athletes? Because if I'm honest, I don't use it that much. I go on feedback from them and visually speaking and talking to them.
Yes, I agree, and I would think, you know, if you're out in the hills navigating, if you can triangulate from 3 data points, you get the best understanding of where you are exactly. I think it's the same with athletes. If you're only using CTL, and particularly, I've seen some coaches saying, right, if you want to go to Hawaii, you need to be having a CTL that's around 120, and then I've seen people, I've spoken to people who said, I've got a CTL of 150, but I know they're nowhere near getting to Hawaii. And then when you look at their zones, they're all set up incorrectly. So that can be misleading, but you can see trends for definite. And then you can look at individual sessions and look at test sets that people are doing and speaking to them as well. Because you could have somebody who's training 20 hours a week and have a really high TSS, but if they're getting 3 hours of sleep a night, they're not going to perform at their best.
Awesome. Thanks very much for that. I really appreciate it.
No, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks for that. We've got one from Jane Wild. So she just wondered if you can expand on the proxy measure for FTP.
Can you explain what you mean by proxy measure, Jane?
Hi there, Simon. Yeah, a little while ago, you mentioned in passing that something could be used when an athlete wasn't able to take an FTP test. And I missed what it was you said.
Yeah, so if you remember when I shared those 2 graphs, I had that one with pace and power, and for running, and I showed you could have a line that was representing what's currently happening and then some historical data. if you are loading power data into TrainingPeaks on a regular basis, TrainingPeaks can assimilate all that, and then using that graph, you can go down and it'll show you what your approximate power is, your best power is for 1 minute, for 5 seconds, for 6 minutes, for 12 minutes, for 20 minutes, and for 60 minutes. And you know, if you're doing a lot of riding, then that would give you a rough idea of what somebody's FTP is. So if you were doing most people do an FTP test now 20 minutes. So you would look at the 20-minute one and look at that and say, right, okay, it says that their FTP's roughly 250 watts. So let's give them a session where they're working around that and see how they cope. If they cope with it really easily, then it's likely that that's an underestimate. If it's really difficult for them, it's an overestimate, but it gives you a starting point.
Thank you.
Okay.
We've got another one on here just from Tony Saunders. I don't know if you could probably share your screen again, Simon, if this might be easier, but she's just asking how do you get the calendar view up? Tony, I don't know if you want to elaborate a little bit more on that, what you'd like to see.
Oh no, hello, sorry, it's just when you had it, I didn't see exactly how you got that calendar view up. What do you click on to get it up, please?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to that now. So I'm just going to share the screen. So let's get rid of that other athlete there for a start. So we'll click that X box. Bye-bye. Right, so what's happening here? Cancel. Right. So I'm on the calendar.
Oh, do you know, sorry, I've said the wrong thing. It wasn't the calendar. I remember it was the split screen. Sorry.
It was the what? The split screen, right? Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
So
you can
on the
do
split.
both.
No, you're welcome. So if you can see up here, can you see where my cursor is now? It's just circling those two little boxes that look like grids. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Now,
yes.
Are you speaking from a position as a coach or an athlete?
Coach.
Right. So if you've got a coach account, you should have this. So if I click that there, can you see that little icon that says Open Dual Calendar?
Yeah.
Right. When I click on that now, if the system's working fast, there you go. Look, now we've split the screen, and I can drag this athlete here, Bob Roberts. I can bring him across to the right-hand side. Now I have two athletes on the screen in a minute. The other thing that I like to do is I sometimes have training plans that I told you I've got lots of training plans that I've created. So I'll drag a training plan across to here. So you can see Bob Roberts is open now, but I might have a training plan that I drag across to there. So it's common for me to have, if I could have Bob Roberts dummy plan, and I have Bob Roberts operating plan. So that's the one that Bob looks at. The dummy one is the one that I plan. And then I would plan on this side here. And then when I've done the training program, I would just drag it across the other side and drop it in there.
Oh, I see. So you plan it on the left and then drag it to the right. Yeah. And then show it to him when you're ready to send it.
Yeah, that's what. And the reason I do that is because sometimes athletes change sessions around depending on their work schedule or access to, for instance, at the moment, a lot of people having to move swim sessions around because they can't get into the pool on the day we've talked about. So when I come to look at their calendar at the end of the week to see what they've done, it's good for me to go back to the dummy plan and see what I'd planned out and see how it's changed around then.
Oh, that's a good idea. So how do you save them like that? How have you got you? So you just make the plan up on the left and then drag it over, copy it and paste it to the right, and they'll just all both be there.
Yeah, once I've created Bob's plan there, you remember earlier when I copied and pasted those strength sessions, once they're in there, they're saved then. You don't need to click an icon to say save, it's just there. So as long as, sometimes it won't save if your internet's playing up or TrainingPeaks is running slow, but most of the time, once I've put this in here, if I close this down now and then open it back up again, it will pop straight back up.
Okay. Oh, right. That's really good to. And how do you, sorry, I know it might sound a silly question, but how do you make sure you send the one on the right and not the one on the left?
Well, because that's the dummy plan. So it's in this training plans thing here. In the athlete library, That's the only one that they can see. So
Right.
I'll either put it in the right one or I won't put it in there at all. And if I don't do that, I'm sure they'll be ringing me straight away to tell me.
Right. Okay.
All right.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, Ellie, have we got any more?
We've got one more, and there's a couple actually just on the same thread, and I'm just conscious of time, so we'll just fire this one as the last one. So for a couple of guys on here that they don't use TrainingPeaks, so their abbreviations, obviously there's a lot of abbreviations that you use in coaching and on these kind of platforms. They just want to know what TSS, ATL and CTL stand for. You could just elaborate on those.
Okay, so training stress score is TSS, so it's a product of duration times intensity. So a long time ago, probably when I first started coaching and there wasn't any of this, we used to talk about, well, if you did an easy run, that's quite hard on the body. In fact, in some ways, an easy 45-minute run could be harder on the body than a hard 45-minute swim. So how would you rank those? You know, if you did an arguably a moderate level, so a hard run might be equivalent to an easy swim of the same, a hard swim might be the equivalent of an easy run at the same duration, and a moderate bike of 45 minutes might be the same as an easy run. What TSS does is it allows you to have some sort of standard notation for each of those sessions. Now, it's not perfect, and if you search long enough, you'll find a lot of people saying TSS is rubbish and it doesn't give you a decent a decent view of exactly how hard a training session is. And maybe they're right, but it's splitting hairs. It's better than nothing. And as Hemi25 said before, you ask your athletes how they're feeling. So if you're only using one metric on its own, it's probably not the best way. TSS is good enough until somebody comes up with something better. And I do know that TrainingPeaks are working on that, but for now, it's probably the best thing we've got. Chronic training load is what we call fitness at TrainingPeaks. So it's a function of TSS, and it's accumulated over 42 days, because I think it's generally accepted that fitness builds up. You see changes in fitness over 6 weeks. So if I wanted to see your TSS, your CTL score for today, it would take in the last 6 weeks of training. And then if you did a training session tomorrow, it would add tomorrow's workout and it would kick out the one from 43 days ago. And if your training sessions are progressively getting a little harder and the TSS scores are going up, you will see that the chronic training load builds. Acute training load, which is ATL, is fatigue. And it's generally accepted that we can measure fatigue over what's happened in the last 7 days. So that takes into account the training. And when you saw those performance management charts, you saw lots and lots of different graphs. Chronic training load goes up. ATL puts you into a bit of a hole. There's another function called training stress balance, which is a function of the comparison of ATL and CTL. If that's a minus, then that means you're working hard and you're getting more fatigue. If it's a plus, it means you're probably losing fitness. And so there's a little bit more nuance into how all that fits together. So maybe this is a time to tell them about those new webinars, Ellie.
Yeah.
So I apologize for the fact that we only had an hour today. You know, normally the TrainingPeaks University courses last for a weekend and you get to meet people in person and chat about the different ways, and there'll be people from different sports. Obviously, we've not got that option at the moment, but what I'm going to be doing on behalf of TrainingPeaks, and this is my role as their coach education ambassador, is to deliver some webinars. Now, initially, those webinars will be for athletes, and then we'll be doing some for coaches, and the athlete ones will be very similar. They'll both be very similar in content to what we've got, but obviously there'll be a bias towards athletes or coaches. So there'll be 3 webinars. There will be a cost to them, but it's not going to be horrendous. It's probably something like £10 per webinar or £25 if you pay for them all. They're going to be coming up very soon. I'm sure Ellie and the people at TrainingPeaks will be able to share when I've got those on. And I know that if you're on the TrainingPeaks mailing list, then they're definitely going to be telling you about it. So that's probably going to be coming up within the next month. So yeah, that's it for me, folks. Thank you very much for being here. I hope you enjoy the rest of the evening. And thanks to Ellie and Michelle and Nat for asking me to present tonight. I hope it's been worthwhile.
Thanks, Simon. I'll just wrap this up then. So thanks for doing that and taking the time out to deliver the session on the week. I'll just share my screen. Hopefully it will work. Can you see my screen? Is it the thank you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, so thanks again for joining us. I'll just take you through a bit of a wrap up. So thanks again. So just feel free to reshare your learning experience on social media using the Big Reboot. Join us again. We've got another session at 7:45 on the performance pathway with Dan Salcedo and Alistair Donaldson. And then at 9, we've got a Q&A with Mark Buckingham. So if you want to join in those, then that'd be great. Tell us what you think. You will receive an email probably in the next few days just regarding feedback, and you'll also all receive a virtual goodie bag, so that will be hitting your inboxes with some discount codes from our partners. And any questions, as always, just drop us an email to clubs.or.coaching@britishtrathlon.org. And there we go. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ellie.